There's lots of psychological problems with money. Money is a wonderful invention. It lets us save, it lets us specialize, right? I couldn't be a professor if there wasn't any money. Every day I would have to raise chicken and bread and broccoli and go ahead and spend all my time trading. So money is a wonderful mechanism. Money is also very difficult to think about. So we think about money as the opportunity cost of money. So we at some point went to a Toyota dealership and we asked people, what will you not be able to do in the future if you bought this Toyota? Now, you would expect people to have an answer, but people were kind of shocked by the question. They never thought about it before. So the most we got was people said, oh, if I can't buy this Toyota, if I buy this Toyota, I can't buy a Honda. So they were making a substitution from the same product in the same time. But in reality, this is not a substitution. They're substituting something for the future. In the future, I will have to give up 2 weeks of vacation and 70 lattes and 1,500 books. I don't know what exactly the translation is, but when we do consume something now, something else has to give at some point. What is this thing? What is this shadow value of price? Very hard to think about it. So that's a huge psychological barrier. So we're actually trying to develop an iPhone app. Now that the Droid is out, we'll do it for that as well if we ever learn how to program on this thing. But the idea is that to make money concrete. So you come to this app, and it's not out there, but you'll come to the app, and you say, I like vacation in the Bahamas, shoes, lattes, and books. And now when you're tempted to buy something, that thing translates in terms of the things you're interested in. So it said, hey, this particular item is like half a day in the Bahamas, 2 shoes and 1 latte. Which one of those is better? Now in reality, we think that comparing everything to money is great. But the reality is that it's very hard to think about money. It's so general, it's so abstract that we don't really know what we're giving up and what we're gaining. So if I gave you now $10 as a gift, how happy would you be? Would you be happy as the marginal $10? The best use of $10 that you could use? Of course not. If I gave you a CD, you know exactly what you're getting and you'll have an hedonic value for it. So money has kind of lots of problems with it. With money, we really fool ourselves. I mean, we are our biggest enemies with money, and there's some things we can do about it. Automatic deductions are a wonderful thing, right? Ideally, you should wait until the end of the month. You can see how much extra money you had, and you should put that in your savings account. We don't do that well, and if we did that, we will never save. So what we do is we take money out of our pocket into a saving account in the beginning of the month, take it outside of our control, and as a consequence, we spend less and save more. This is, by the way, a very good trick. When you say, if I rely on my own decision making at every moment, I will fail many, many times. If I think once very hard and create a standard of what I want to do and create an automatic execution that will take out the money every month from my bank account, then there's a good chance I'll behave better. Not because I'm making good decisions, because it's making it for me. So I think automatic deductions are one. Thinking about money in concrete terms. So when you come to think about buying something, usually we compare within categories. For example, you go to a restaurant, you look at the wine list, and you never say to yourself, my goodness, for the difference between these 2 bottles of wine, I could buy 3 gallons of milk. Right? We just don't think like this. We compare wine to wine and milk to milk and beer to beer. But in fact, that's how we want to think. Now, it's very hard to do it in an extensive way. But when you face something, you could say, what else could I get if I didn't get this? And which one of those is giving me the greatest pleasure? Now, it's not always that we always need to save more and spend less. I think the question is, are we allocating our money correctly across into different categories? Money is a great way to get happiness, right? Lots of wonderful things you could do with money. The question is, are we really optimizing on that? So if you think about getting lattes and getting cable, which one of those is actually giving you a greater happiness? And if you had to cut on one of those, which one would you cut? So I think thinking in terms of concrete terms would help us a great deal. There's another thing we call the pain of paying. Give me a second. There's another idea called the pain of paying. This was proposed by George Lowenstein and Dražen Prilak. And here is the idea. Imagine that I own a restaurant. And imagine that I discover that people come and they eat 50 bites and they pay $50. And one day I offer you a great deal. I say, you know what? Today it will be half price. 50 cents per bite, and moreover, I'll only charge you for the bites you take. And you're going to sit there and you're going to eat, and I'm going to sit there with your wallet, and every bite you take, I'm going to take 50 cents from your wallet and transfer it to my cash register. Now, it's going to be a very efficient way to eat because you're not going to spend much money. Cheaper, plus only the bites you eat. But how much fun will eating be? Not very fun, right? Why? Because it turns out that the simultaneity of eating and consuming, or enjoying and paying, actually makes things less happy. Here's another example. Imagine you go on a cruise to Alaska, and you can either pay 6 months in advance or the moment you get off the ship. It's much more reasonable economically to pay the moment you get off the ship. But how much would you enjoy the last day of the cruise? It will be kind of miserable knowing that tomorrow you have to pay all this money. So what happened is that this simultaneity is very important. And we can use it in two ways. We can think about how we reduce the pain of paying. So for example, credit cards are wonderful mechanisms to reduce the pain of paying. If you go to a restaurant and you pay in cash, you would feel much worse than if you pay in a credit card. Why? You know the price, there's no surprise. But if you pay in cash, you feel a bit more guilt. It's a bit more difficult. It's kind of more painful to part with your money. With a credit card, you say, it's another time. So you can think about this as good or bad. If you want to spend more money in restaurants, use credit cards more than cash. If you want to spend less, use cash more than credit cards. But in general, we can think about how to use the pain of paying and how much of it do we want. And I think we have like a range. Credit cards have very little pain of paying. Debit cards have a little bit more because you feel like today, at least it's coming out of your checking account. And cash has much more. But you can even do better than cash. Imagine that you had envelopes. And your envelopes were telling you how much money you have in each category for the rest of the month. You had an envelope for coffee. You had an envelope for restaurants. You had an envelope for grocery. Now when you take money out, you also see how much what you have left is shrinking. And that would actually increase the pain of paying more. Now, I don't think we should go around life and being miserable all the time and feeling the pain of paying. It's a question of what categories we want to spend more on and what categories we feel that we're spending too much on and we want to cut down.